In an historic first, a team of primatologists has succeeded in teaching Quigley, a western lowland gorilla, the concept of mortality and his inevitable doom. Lana Burrows and Philip Townsend are the researchers leading the project.
When we first started with Quigley, he was just a normal, happy ape, not a care in the world.
To make sure Quigley retains the awareness of his own demise, the team spends several hours per day reinforcing the certainty of death's arrival.
Quigley, you die. You will die soon.
He was letting out these anguished cries and banging his head against the wall, and I just thought, we did it.
The Tulane scientists believe that we may be able to teach a gorilla to resort to alcoholism or even try to kill itself in as little as a decade.
Death, dying, RIPing in peace. Whatever you want to call it, I'd argue it's a core component of what makes anime so fascinating. If you make your way up the mountains of discussions over anime, you're likely to climb across the usual statements about character ships, who best girl is, or how a whiny character needs to have their mouth duct taped. Standing atop everything, however, is the mentioning of death. This can include whether a character will survive, how badass someone looked going down, or shared pain over how heart-wrenching it was when so-and-so kicked the bucket. I'm gonna miss you, so-and-so. Amongst anime fans, deaths have gone on to define many series, or what is most commonly brought up after a particular show is mentioned. In some situations, those deaths may even reach morbid meme status. Bang.
Where's the kaboom? There was supposed to be an earth-shattering kaboom!
For the longest time, I refused to watch Code Geass due to stumbling upon constant spoilers, including Lelouch's death. Even searching anime death almost anywhere will let loose hordes of anime death lists. It's like weebs have this twisted morbid obsession with death. There are times when fans of an anime will either be collectively begging the author to kill off an annoying character or furiously celebrating when one of them dies. Many My Hero fans certainly want to see Mineta get the school day special. I still love him though. Now, it wouldn't be fair for me to rag on the edgy tendencies of other weebs, as I'm quite intrigued by death myself. Even when I was a young boy, I viciously wanted to see the Black Parade. Unfortunately, I didn't truly discover anime until my mid-teens, so growing up, I barely witnessed death in American cartoons. No matter what happened to these cartoon bastards, they'd just take it with ease, or they'd simply show up in the next scene or episode like nothing happened. In comparison, the survivability of Daffy Duck makes Levi's seem like Kenny's. Once I was finally watching loads of anime, I was able to experience true death. Okay, there were a few live-action things that my eyes got a tad watery at, like Old Yeller pulling an FMA before it was cool, but that was all real-life shit, so I was also kinda like, whatever. Now with anime, to me, man, the death in it has always stood out way more. First, anime has specific death tropes, some wicked cool and some bothersome, that overall make death feel more iconic in it. Also, it may seem cheesy, but I've always enjoyed how many anime will add an extra dramatic focus towards specific character deaths. The emotional Japanese OST flares up as flashbacks of the characters start filling the screen. One might say it's dragged out, but I can appreciate that extended stay on their death as a sort of tribute to them. You could almost call it an art form. Shows from other mediums never gave me the same level of impact. Maybe it's because, as weebs, we're much more attached to the characters within anime, especially considering waifus and husbandos. So when our favorite characters die, you better believe we're gonna need intensive therapy. How dare you kill that who I jerk off to? Unless it's on some DBZ level bullshit, when a character dies in an anime, it's quite possible we'll never get to see them again. We no longer get to see them develop or potentially reach their goals and dreams. We will never get to see how the story might have been were they still alive. Anime characters can quite literally die when they are killed. This is also severely soul-crushing for characters that we've extensively grown with in long-airing series. It might sound fucked up, but I'm sure some of you have gotten more emotional over the death of a fictional character than from someone you knew in real life. maybe it's a coping mechanism, but I've had close relatives die before where I mostly felt awkward apathy, yet when some of my waifus have been killed, damn did that hurt. Or, as I said, anime fans can be quite morbid, so maybe in the back of our minds we're secretly hoping for the deaths of our favorite characters so we can revel in the pain. No, Mom, I already told you I can't make it to Grandpa's funeral. I'm busy working on the altar for the grandfather in Jujutsu Kaisen. For me, the anime death that agonized me the most was Sasha's in Shingeki no Kyojin. Since the moment she was introduced through that goofy-ass potato scene, I immediately knew that she was who I'd want to survive the most. In a world as grim as Shingeki's, she was a source of hope and laughter. Upon first witnessing her death, I was surprisingly filled with shock rather than sadness. It wasn't until shortly after the episode that I saw her trending on Twitter. That's when my weeaboo tears made their escape. #PotatoesAreOver party. As I continued climbing down the wall of sorrowful tweets, it began to dreadfully dawn on me that I would no longer get to fully experience Sasha on the rest of my journey through Attack on Titan. I embarrassingly didn't even stop dwelling over her death for almost 2 weeks. Like, dead ass. Pun intended. Luckily, AOT's writer, Hajime Isayama, has done an excellent job at making the deaths of certain characters play an important role in the series going forward, Sasha especially. It was nice feeling that my favorite character really did matter. Unfortunately, there are also a fair amount of anime that make death feel lackluster or like it's on a permanent paid vacation. Obviously, all series don't need the element of death. We don't need Mio from K-On! Getting slaughtered by a bus. Or maybe we do. But when it comes to shonen anime, and even as an avid fan of many of them, kicking the bucket isn't typically handled well in them. The suspenseful showdown between All Might and All for One was pretty hype. But I believe that had All Might died like a champion, it would have been even more powerful. Sure, my sentimental attachment towards him made part of me glad he pulled through, but I think dying could have heavier affected the nature of the superhero society and Deku's development going forward. Instead, he kinda just sits around like an adult pretending to be a Make-A-Wish kid for pity. It's like so many shonen are too spooked to kill off their main good guys. For example, just take one glance at Fairy Tail. That anime is like if everyone caught in 9/11 suddenly spawned a parachute from their ass and developed an immunity to burning jet fuel. Then of course, the biggest offenders of putting a middle finger up to death are DBZ, Naruto, or any series with similar antics. These anime were having people resurrect more than a little brother when it was his turn to play the Xbox. To me, particularly with DBZ, this consequentially crushed the impact of deaths in the series, as I would be like, oh, guess they'll just revive them again later. The way in which Naruto grew to have so many reanimations kinda got to be horseshit on a 50-yard stick, Itachi especially. Plus with all the flashbacks and fillers in them, sometimes was it actually like we truly lost a character? Fucking Orochimaru kept coming back like he was an army of COVID variants. Some anime, however, in what feels like a flaw, do the complete opposite of series like Fairy Tail and DBZ. As Akame ga Kill went on, it felt like almost all of the main cast had to die for the purpose of shock value. Some of those deaths felt implausible and outright forced. Even a show as highly praised as To Your Eternity got so predictable with killing off key characters of multiple arcs for the purpose of being sad. It's like, he's dead, she's dead, you're dead, you're cool, and she's dead. A careless and constant axing of characters can dampen the impact of death, especially when the viewer isn't given proper time to grow attached to or learn about them. While earlier I declared how Shingeki has handled death pretty well, there are actually a few aspects of it in its earlier episodes that felt lacking. Jean discovering Marco's body honestly should have played out like this.
Tell me who are you?
Now, what I've said regarding revivals and bodies constantly hitting the floor doesn't mean they can't be utilized well. Some shows use them for artistic symbolism or as an important component to their plot. To insert their main character into a new world, many isekai will insert them into a deadly accident, usually courteous of the infamous truck-kun. Frankly, I wish isekai would switch this up more often. There's plenty of craftier ways they could delete them. Drop a whole damn piano on the bastard Looney Tunes style. Now that's what I call a death note. For anime like Madoka, Re:Zero, or Higurashi, the art of resurrection is used so their characters keep repeating the same horrific events in order to fix something. In those series, I can still find myself at the edge of my seat over death, as they made me attached to the suffering and the struggles those characters go through, avoiding having to repeat tragic events. I imagine it's like the pain of watching your child having to repeat the same grade over and over. Animes such as them are also commonly good at making fresh ways for their characters to die that feel horrific through the subsequent loops. Damn, I really am one sick, twisted son of a bitch.
The truth is, I kind of like it when a lot of people die. You know, some people say, well, that's all very amusing, George, but you'd feel a whole lot different if there was really a big disaster and one of your loved ones got killed. And I think, no, I wouldn't. You know something? I'll even settle for a runaway merry-go-round. A runaway merry-go-round spinning out of control, 60 miles an hour, 200 revolutions a minute, children flying off one by one.
You know, with all those repeated deaths, anime in general sure has a splendid variety of ways that people die, whether it be sad, violent, humorous, or downright fucked up. Maybe it was a tad ridiculous, but boy did I fancy all the casualties in Another. The entire Umbrella scene is an absolute work of art. Frame that shit on my wall. I tried. Yes, I can become invested and emotional over death in something more slice-of-life natured, like Violet Evergarden when the young kid dies from ass cancer or something, but man, it's the more over-the-top stuff that gets me hella hooked. I ragged on shonen earlier with how it can handle death, but damn do some characters get killed or kill villains in the most badass or unique ways. After Shikamaru conceives an elaborate scheme to murder Hidan, the killer of his sensei, he is able to cleverly lure Hidan into the woods and within a booby trap full of explosive papers. He then pulls out the lighter of Asuma, his sensei, to light the cigarette of his ghost, before sending it onto the explosives to finish off Hidan. Like, who thinks up of this shit? This was an A+ written villain killing that severely highlighted the strengths and traits of Shikamaru. But when I die, please let a good guy from a shonen anime end me. Same with my loved ones, too. All of this fatality fascination from me is probably why I'm such a sucker for battle royale anime, or anime where surviving is a large part of the story. Going week to week when they're airing seasonally is a trip, waiting to see who will survive another episode. When death could be right around the corner, it adds this extra layer of value and meaning to the events and characters for me. The discussions for these series in which we chat over who will live are like playing games of character death bingo. I get off of that thrill. I'll be frantically panicking while my favorite characters are in danger. But I'll get an exhilarating adrenaline rush too. It's like I'm on the verge of shitting my pants, yet for some weird reason I'm getting high off of it. An even better feeling is when your waifu or favorite character lives to the end. It's very rewarding, like, fuck yeah, I picked the right girl.
Simba, you have forgotten me.
No.
Look inside yourself, Simba. You are more than what you have become.
So we've talked a lot about anime characters passing away, but afterwards, where exactly are they all going? In the case of DBZ, many times we'd still get to see people after their deaths. It had a whole nother world for its afterlife where many parts of the story took place, which is kind of another reason that dying felt so meaningless in it. Some anime have their own renditions of hell, most notably in Noragami and I No Exorcist. With anime like Death Parade and Angel Beats, the afterlife is creatively used as the main part of their concept and setting. As for most anime as a whole when it comes to post-mortem characters, they most seem to reflect the standard procedures of Shinto and Buddhism, the two most common religions in Japan. This can be seen in anime through the common ceremonies and tributes such as the picture altars known as tamaya, the burning of incense at graves, and the characters all wearing black at funerals. Lastly, for the series with no implied afterlife, I can't help but wonder, where do all our waifus go when they die?
We go on your wall, you degenerate asshole!
Well, that's most of what I wanted to say about death in anime. Any more, and I'd probably be beating a dead horse until it dies. Someone might argue that what I've said in regards to dying in anime could still technically be applied to shows and other mediums, but for me personally, and I'm sure for many other weebs, it just hit differently, especially because it was anime. We will stressfully continue to lose several of our waifus and husbandos, but it's important to remember that they died for the art. They will continue to live on with our hearts, wet dreams, and memes. We will keep our fingers constantly hot glued to the F key. We pray ourselves to sleep that one day we will get to experience our favorite characters again through an OVA, a remake, or alternative timeline series. Death may just be one part of an anime, but I say it will always be a big one.
Give me death or give me death.
Ladies and gentlemen, we got him.